So, we're going to talk about a guy who got rejected from Harvard. Not once, not twice, but 10 times. A guy who couldn't even get a job at KFC. And yet, he somehow went on to build a global empire. This is the story of Jack Ma. And trust me, it's not your typical rags to riches tale. We're going to dive deep into the mindset, the actual system he used to turn a lifetime of being told no into one of the most incredible success stories you'll ever hear. Let's get into it.
To really understand how Jack Ma built something as massive as Alibaba, you have to start in a weird place. You have to start with his unbelievable track record of failure. And that's the paradox that makes his story so powerful. Because for him, failure wasn't something to avoid. It was the raw material, the very fuel he used to build his success. And figuring out how he did that? Well, that's the key to his entire playbook.
I mean, just read that again. This isn't some motivational poster quote. This is his actual life. He failed primary school twice. He applied to Harvard, his dream school, 10 separate times and got shot down every single time. Can you imagine the grit it takes to just fill out that application for the 10th time? And then you have the story that became legendary. KFC comes to his city, 24 people apply for a job. They hire 23 of them. Guess who the one person was who got turned away? Yup. This wasn't just a series of bad days. This was his reality.
10 times. He wrote the essays, filled out the forms, and mailed his dreams off to Harvard, only to get that thin rejection letter back in the mail. 10 times. I mean, think about it. Most of us would quit after the second, maybe third try. The emotional hit is just too much. But you get the sense that for Ma, it was different. It was less about getting their approval and more about testing his own will. Every no wasn't a final verdict. It was just data, a sign to try again, or maybe try a different way. This wasn't just being persistent. This was a strategy to wear down his own self-doubt.
Okay, how about 30? After he finally managed to graduate from college, which was a whole other struggle, he hit the job market. Applied for 30 different jobs, got rejected from all 30. And it's not like he was only aiming for CEO positions. He applied to be a police officer, and they literally told him, "You're no good." Just imagine the weight of that, day in and day out, being told by society at every single turn that you don't have what it takes. That kind of pressure could have absolutely crushed him, but instead, it was like it was forging a kind of art.
And then we get to the number one. And honestly, this one might be the most brutal of them all. 24 people, including him, go to apply for a job at the new KFC. At the end of the day, 23 people walk out with a job. He was the one, the single person they looked at and decided against. It's almost hard to wrap your head around a rejection that personal, that direct. And not for some high-level corporate gig. For a job at KFC, this was rock bottom. A moment so humiliating that it would eventually become a cornerstone of his legend.
Which, of course, brings us to the real question here, right? How does a person who failed so completely, so consistently, turn around and win on a global scale? This is way more than just a comeback story. It's about a total transformation. How do you take a mountain of rejection, a whole life of being told you're not good enough, and use that as the foundation for an empire? What was his secret?
And this is where it all changes. Picture this. It's 1999. There's no fancy boardroom, no investors with deep pockets. There's just Jack Ma's tiny, cramped apartment, and 17 of his friends packed inside, listening to him talk. He had nothing to offer them. No track record of success, quite the opposite, in fact. No money. All he had was this crazy, audacious vision to build an online marketplace for small businesses when most people in China weren't even on the internet. He wasn't selling them on a business plan. He was selling them on a belief, on a mission. And in that little room, all those years of rejection finally found their purpose.
So you have to ask, how did he convince those 17 people to bet on him? Well, the answer goes right back to that history of failure. See, those rejections weren't just obstacles he had to overcome. They were the fire that forged his entire mindset. They became his secret weapon. He didn't just survive failure. He studied it, he learned from it, and he turned those lessons into a full-blown philosophy. That was his real education.
So let's just lay it all out. When you see it like this, it's just relentless. Failing the big university entrance exams 3 times, the 30 job rejections, being turned away by the police, and, of course, the KFC story. This isn't a string of bad luck. This was the theme of his early life. It was like at every important moment, the world just systematically told him no.
And right here, this is the key to his entire psychological shift. For most people, for you and me, this much rejection would be crippling. You'd be terrified to try anything new. But for Jack Ma, the exact opposite happened. It was like getting a vaccine. The constant exposure to failure, it inoculated him. The sting of being told no just wore off.
A rejection letter wasn't a judgment on his self-worth anymore. It was just data. It was feedback. Harvard saying no meant try again later. KFC saying no meant go start your own thing. The fear of failure that paralyzes so many of us it was burned out of him.
And all of this gave birth to his personal mantra, a quote that basically became the operating system for his company. Today is hard, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. He actually got the inspiration from his hero, Forrest Gump, this idea of just keep running no matter what happens. And this isn't some cheesy, optimistic slogan. It's about realistic endurance. He baked the expectation of hardship right into his worldview. He knew it was going to be tough. But he had this deep conviction that if you can just survive, if you can just make it through the storm, the sunshine is waiting for you.
Okay, so this mindset, this expectation of struggle, it wasn't just a personal motto. Jack Ma did what all great leaders do. He scaled it. He took his personal philosophy and turned it into a strategic blueprint for his entire company. He literally built an organization designed to survive the hard todays and the even worse tomorrows. So let's break down exactly what that blueprint looks like.
He calls this idea visionary resilience. And the most important word in that phrase is visionary. This isn't just about being tough for the sake of it. It's about being tough for a reason. It's a strategy that helps you keep going by focusing on something way off in the distance. Think about the early days of Alibaba, when they were burning through money and had zero revenue. Investors were freaking out. They wanted profits now. But Ma's whole philosophy allowed him to ignore that pressure. His goal wasn't a good quarterly report. It was building a healthy ecosystem for his customers 10 years from now. That long-term vision is the engine that powers resilience.
So his philosophy really rests on three main pillars. First up, embrace failure as fuel. This is more than just learning from your mistakes. It means you actively look for the useful information inside every rejection. Pillar 2 is a bit of a bombshell in the business world. Customers first, employees second, shareholders third. For Ma, it's just pure logic. If your customers are happy, your business thrives. And who makes the customers happy? Your employees. So if you take care of those two groups, the shareholders will be happy as a result. It's a brilliant way to fight short-term thinking. And finally, the long view. This is all about looking ahead to the day after tomorrow. It's what let him build Alipay when everyone, even his own team, said it was a crazy idea that would land him in jail. He was just playing a completely different game than everyone else. And this quote right here, it perfectly captures that first pillar. See, in Jack Ma's mind, getting rejected by KFC, that wasn't failure, that was just practice. The only real, unforgivable failure is choosing to give up. Getting rejected by Harvard 10 times wasn't the failure. Quitting after the 9th time would have been. As long as you're still in the game, you haven't lost.
Now, philosophy is one thing, but a philosophy won't save you when the market crashes. For that, you need actual systems. So how did Jack Ma take his personal mindset and bake it into the DNA of a giant corporation? He built practical, repeatable systems designed for one thing: survival.
Just look at how different his approach was. When it comes to hiring, most leaders want to be the smartest person in the room. Ma famously said he only wanted to hire people who were smarter than him. He knew he wasn't a tech genius, so he hired the best, and then just got out of their way. And when it came to culture, he'd take a passionate team player over a brilliant jerk any day of the week. He knew a team that shared the same mission could survive anything. Finally, he wasn't the lead from the front kind of guy. He was the servant leader. His job wasn't to be the hero. His job was to clear the obstacles so that his team could be the heroes.
And he applied these systems to his own life too. He knew that a resilient company needed a resilient leader. So these habits, they weren't just hobbies, they were strategic tools. His Tai Chi practice wasn't just exercise, it was training to stay calm and make clear decisions under intense pressure. Reading global news wasn't just for fun, it was how he maintained that long-term view, spotting trends no one else saw. These routines were his personal support system. They were how he stayed steady enough to steer the ship through all the inevitable storms.
Okay, so we've looked at the failures that shaped him, the philosophy that guided him, and the systems that supported him. Now let's look at the result. This is where the story gets truly insane. This is where a lifetime of struggle finally explodes into one of the most incredible success stories of our time. $12. Just let that number sink in. That was his monthly salary as an English teacher. Not per hour, per month. This was his starting line. This was the guy who was about to take on global giants like eBay. He had no money, no connections, just a monthly income that could barely buy him dinner. This is ground zero.
And from that $12 a month starting line came this. It starts in that apartment in 1999.
By 2003, he does the unthinkable and launches Taobao to go head-to-head with eBay in China. Everyone said he was crazy. He won. A year later, he creates Alipay to solve the problem of trust online, a system so radical his team warned it could land him in prison. And it all leads to 2014, when Alibaba launches the biggest IPO the world had ever seen. 15 years. From $12 a month to the top of the financial world, all built on the back of resilience.
But you know, if you only measure his success in dollars, you're kind of missing the whole point. His real legacy goes all the way back to that mission he pitched in his apartment, to empower the little guy. He's always said that this kind of wealth doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to society, and he's proving it. Through his foundation, he's now pouring his resources back into education and helping the next generation of entrepreneurs. He's completing the circle.
So after hearing this whole incredible story, what's the lesson for us? How do we take the Jack Ma playbook and apply it to our own lives, whether we're starting a business or just trying to get through a really tough time? How do we find our own day after tomorrow?
I think this is it. This is the single biggest lesson from Jack Ma's life. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, for the right degree, for someone to give you permission. If Jack Ma had waited for any of that, he'd still be teaching English for $12 a month. His life is proof that you don't need a perfect plan. You just need a mission you believe in, the courage to actually start, and an unshakable bet on your own ability to endure.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, it's so clear. Jack Ma didn't build his empire on luck or money. He built it on a systematic, stubborn, and strategic refusal to quit. His legacy is proof that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the path you have to walk to get there. And it leaves all of us with one simple, powerful truth. Success belongs to those who never give up.